there, my name's Anna and welcome back to my art channel. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you some new paints that I just bought, and they are the Windsor and Newton designer gouache paints. So I'm really thrilled with them. I've used them, well okay, I've only used them on one painting so far, but I really enjoyed using them. And yeah, I have some experience with gouache paint. I have been using the Arteza gouache paint for some years now. I think I got them as a Christmas present from my boyfriend 2 years ago. And yeah, I really enjoyed using them. They were the first gouache paint that I ever had, so I had no comparison. And well, I guess I just liked the medium. And then I ran out of my white gouache and I got myself a large tube of Schminke student grade gouache, and I didn't really like it very much. Not that Schminke paint is not good, but this was probably because it was a student grade one and it just didn't re-wet very well, and it was, I don't know, the kind of a clumpy consistency. It just wasn't as smooth as the cheap Arteza gouache, actually. Well, in any case, you can't buy Arteza open stock, and I just needed some white paint. So I bought the one from Winsor & Newton because I had heard Winsor & Newton designer gouache is kind of the original thing. Yeah, I bought it and it's fantastic. I mean, it's so smooth. It re-wets much better than the Arteza paints. And yeah, recently I've just been a bit frustrated with the gouache that I have, possibly because it's a bit older now, or I don't know why. Maybe just in comparison to the white paint, which was just so much smoother and more enjoyable to use. So I just decided to treat myself to this set. It wasn't terribly expensive. There's 10 tubes in here, and I think I paid, was it between 20 and 30 euros for it on Amazon. And yeah, I'm really enjoying using them, and I'm going to let you see some more. So I didn't put the paints out in the correct order. I just put them out in whatever way they fell into my hand. And I wouldn't usually need all of these for one painting, but I'm just going to show you some swatches so you can see the paint in use. And yeah, these are all the colors we have. We have 2 blues, 2 reds, 2 yellows. Oh, well, I guess this is more of an orange, and a yellow ochre, white and black. And did I mention we also have a green, which is not a primary color as most of the others, but it's handy to have a pre-mixed green, although I wouldn't use it in its pure form. It's much too gaudy. I guess it needs to be dulled down a little bit to look more natural. Maybe some yellow or some red added to it. In any case, I'll show you the swatches, and yeah, the black looks a bit clumpy. I don't think I actually used the black last time, or did I? Yes, I painted a flamingo, so I did use black. I don't know why it's clumpy, but we'll see now. When I thin it out a little bit with water, it should have a perfectly smooth consistency. And yeah, on to the swatching. It lays down really smoothly and it is nice and opaque. And now we'll have a look at what it looks like when I thin it down a little bit. Use it more like a watercolor. I'm using just a regular ceramic plate, which is a good surface to use with I guess with watercolor you could also use it, but that's what I use for my gouache paint sometimes. I also have a palette where I have my Arteza paints in. Oh, I don't need to put out more paint, do I? But yeah, it's already filled with my Arteza paints, and it's nice to have a fresh start with your new colors. Make this a bit thicker. To have a clean palette to start off a new project, that's what I'm trying to say. Although it's good to use up the paint that you already have on your palette, since it is re-wettable. The nicest way to use gouache though is fresh out of the tube, whenever possible. So I must say the, which color is this? see permanence A. Okay, you can see the permanence rating here. Spectrum red, this warmer red is a lot more opaque than the primary red, which leans more towards magenta. And this also doesn't have as good a permanence, which will be due to the brightness of that color probably. So I'm not going to swatch the white because, you know, you're not going to see that on the white paper. Maybe if the video doesn't get too long, I'll do a bit of a speed painting, demonstrating using these colors. So now we'll use the, what is this? It looks like an ultramarine blue. Yes, ultramarine blue. And you have to get the right consistency with gouache. It has to be like, yeah, I think a cream-like consistency, they say. Not too much water, not too little, to have a nice flat finish. And I do find you don't have to do as many layers to get a flat finish with this in comparison to the Arteza paints, which are obviously a student grade paint because they're a lot cheaper. Not that these are terribly expensive, as I mentioned. Thinning it out. Because you can use gouache more or less like watercolor as well, especially for your first few layers. And they don't all have the same consistency, I'm noticing. Some of them are more opaque than others, and I think that is relatively normal because there's different pigments being used, and it's just due to that. So this is the cooler blue, primary blue, and it's actually, yeah, I think there's also a single pigment seemingly. Even though I could have sworn that there's some white mixed into here because it's so much more opaque than the other blue. These paints just have a really nice feel on the paintbrush, which I really enjoy. But I think you can't really go by just color swatching something. You need to do an entire painting with something to really know how the paints behave and if you really enjoy it, enjoy the medium or not. And I did enjoy it with my little flamingo painting that I did in my other sketchbook the other day. And when you're using gouache, you'll be mixing a lot of white into most of the colors. At least I find I do. And I've got some green into that yellow. Just a second. Again, a really nice opaque and flat finish. So when I go on to doing a painting now, I'm going to have to clean up my palette a little bit. There's too many colors on here already, and then I have to start mixing colors. There's not enough room. This plate is too small. What's this orange color called? Permanent Yellow Deep. It looks more like an orange than like a yellow. These paints are just so lovely. That's the problem with having so many mediums you like using, though. You don't get to use any of them as often as you'd like, just because life doesn't give you enough time to paint. There always needs to be more time for art. I think my plate was still a little wet from cleaning it earlier. That's why I have this puddle of water here. So, and yellow ochre is always a very opaque color, even in watercolor, so that's no wonder how opaque it is here. So what you don't have in this set is a nice sap green, which obviously you can mix. And you don't have a brown, which is also an easy thing to mix. And here's the black for the deepest, darkest colors. You can mix something close to black, which is the easiest really when you're using watercolor, I find. I think when I'm using gouache for the very darkest stones, I do have to use actual black and not just a mix of the primary colors. Depending on the ratios, you'll get a brown or nearly a black or a grey when you mix all three primaries together. So, with all the paints, this is an old bit of white. Just let's see how it re-wets. I mean, it's always nicer to have the paint fresh. And I guess I could just paint this over one of the colors that's relatively dry. There, you can see how nice and opaque it is. It's not entirely dry, unfortunately, so it's lifting a little bit. Yeah, well, it's blended instead of layered. That's just user error in this case. There, that part was drier. So, if I haven't rambled too long, then we'll go on now to a speed painting. So I've sped up my drawing and painting process a lot faster than I normally would, just because the video is already so long. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what the paints look like in action. So I'm using this footage that I have of a blue flower that I painted just after I taped the other footage. And yeah, starting off with a thin wash first of all in the background. It looks very messy right now, but it looks a lot nicer when I go in with thicker paint. Once that has dried, here you see the thicker paint going down, and these paints really blend into each other really smoothly. Yeah, blending's really super easy with this, which is also something you need to get used to if you want a different kind of effect. But yeah, with some additional layers of paint, I have a lovely blended out of focus background. And it will just really let the flower stand out. So now I'm starting to add detail to the plant itself, to the stems and the little flower buds that haven't opened yet. And I'm using different shades of green, and I'm trying to add some contrast in there where there's light and dark. I think I'm also using some black with the green to darken it a lot. When I was painting in the background, I could have started out with thicker paint from the beginning, and you don't need to add a lot of layers with this paint. You can get a really smooth and covering finish with just one layer also, just to keep that in mind. I just thought I'd start off with a thin background layer. And now I'm painting in the petals, and I'm using lovely blue colors here. And again, you can see the blending really works out perfectly. It's a lot different than with my Arteza paints, I think. And also you need less layers of paint to get a good coverage. At least, certainly if you are using the white in the mix. In any case, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I know it's fairly long, so whoever has watched it to the end, thank you for watching, and I hope you like the way this flower is turning out. And yeah, remember to give me a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel if you've made it this long. Thanks again for watching, and I think we're nearly finished at this point as this footage is sped up super fast. Yeah, and let me know what you think in the comments below. So take care and see you again soon. Bye bye.